Hello, Canton residents. My name is Graham-Hudak, your Canton Township Supervisor. Welcome to another episode of Good Day Canton. Today, my guests are your state representatives, Ranjeev Puri and Matt Kolazar, and we're going to talk to them about some redistricting and find out what's going on in Lansing and some of the bills they've even co-sponsored. I will begin with Representative Ranjeev Puri. Welcome.
Thank you, Supervisor. Pleasure to be here today.
Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and the district that you represent in Canton?
Yeah, so I proudly represent the House District 21, which encompasses Western Canton and then goes down actually to Van Buren Township in Belleville. But a lot of people get confused with my colleague on the eastern side of Canton, but it's kind of a jaggedy line around kind of Lily Road, sometimes a little east, sometimes a little west of that. But was elected to office in November of 2020, so I'm in my first term, unfortunately in the minority party, but I've had a great mentor that I share Canton with who's kind of helped me pick up and learn where the bathrooms are at and even get some bills across the finish line.
Okay, great, thank you. And Representative Kolazar, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you represent in Canton.
First of all, thank you for having me here today. So I represent the 20th House District, which is Northville, Plymouth, and the eastern portion of Canton. When people ask me what the district looks like, I often say it's a downward-facing key because you have the perfect square that is Northville and Plymouth, and then you have pretty much, if you're east of Haggerty, I'm definitely your state representative. If you're east of Lilly, I might be your state representative, depending on where you live in Canton. But I am currently in my second term. I serve on the House Elections and Ethics Committee as well as the Education Committee. Love the work, love working with Rep Puri here, and we try to do as much as we can for Canton every day.
Great, so redistricting, that's a big thing right now, and it's very confusing. So could you tell us a little bit what is changing with your districts as we move forward from November on?
Sure. So I probably have the most dramatic change out of the two of us, as after 2022, I will no longer be Canton State Representative. My new district that I would, if reelected, would be Plymouth, Northville, or most of Northville, and the western and southern portions of Livonia. So it looks very different. It is important for Canton residents in Eastern Canton to know that I am still very much their state representative through the end of this year, though. So if they have any issues, whether it be unemployment, general concerns, anything, still call our office through the end of this year because we are still very much their state representative.
Okay, thank you. Representative Puri, how does your district change?
Yeah, so mine's a little bit less of a dramatic shift, but as I mentioned kind of the opening segment, my current district, House District 21, is the western part of Canton Township, and then it goes down to Van Buren Township in Belleville. Starting in 2022, if reelected, that district now changes to district number 24. I would lose, or the district would lose Van Buren Township in Belleville, and all of that now would be encompassed into Canton. And so really about 96% of Canton is encompassed into this new House District number 24. There's a precinct or two on the southeastern portion of Canton that gets mixed in with the Westland District. But the overwhelming majority of Canton would then be in House District 24.
Okay, great. Okay, and that's going to be at the end of this year.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, it's really confusing, to kind of understand. But as Representative Kolazar put it, he is representing Eastern Canton up until the end of this year. But if anyone gets confused, I think our offices get constituents from both sides of Canton all the time, and our offices work really well together to make sure that those constituent inquiries get directed to the right representative.
Okay.
And I even had I've had residents from Livonia already calling me now, and I still say no. Representative Pahutsky is still your state representative through the end of this year. So we've seen some confusion there. And I should have mentioned my the new district number, if reelected, would be District 22. So I'm currently 20. It would be 22.
Okay. And you will both make sure the residents get maps and they can see this. And our clerk's office here will be very diligent in that also.
Yes, very much.
Absolutely.
So.
Okay, great. So Representative Puri, we'll start with you. What kind of bills have you been working on lately?
A whole host of things. So coming in to the legislator, I was working in the automotive industry. So I have a deep passion for kind of mobility and electric vehicles. And so was fortunate to get put on a couple task forces that are dealing with preparing our state for those incredible changes that are happening. So we've introduced some legislation to kind of help streamline that process to make the ecosystem to own and operate electric vehicles easier here in Michigan. Also, I have two small boys. They're a large part of the reason of the things that I'm focused on fighting for. So I was fortunate enough to be put on a child care task force. So introduced some legislation to kind of expand the accessibility of child care centers, which unfortunately are in large scarcity around Michigan. I've worked with my colleague, Rep. Colzar, to introduce some legislation to kind of tinker with our election dates and maybe even move up the primary. Right now we have an August primary here in Michigan, which is considered late by some standards. And so we've gotten, and a couple other bills. I think the good relationship we've had, I think we've actually co-sponsored each of other bills that have been elected. I'll let you get into some of the stuff that you've worked in as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, it's been great to work with Representative Corey. We've been a really good team here for Canton. Some things that I've worked on. First of all, I had my first and second bills signed into law at the very end of 2021. And the first bill that I had signed into law was a bill that guarantees that every child of a police officer or firefighter who dies in the line of duty can go to college here in Michigan at one of our state universities or community colleges tuition free. Very proud of that. It was something that has been recognized by our first responder community, and it's something to continue to build on that I'm really excited about. The second thing that I had passed into law, I would say maybe doesn't always get people as excited, but I think it's exciting because I like to geek out over some of this stuff, is a fund that would basically generate more money for elections equipment. And what it is when any candidate has to file for office, they can either get their signatures or they can pay a $100 fee. If you opt to do the $100 fee, that fee no longer will be refundable as it was in the past. Instead, it goes into a fund to purchase and maintain elections equipment. So I was excited about that one getting signed into law. Currently, I have a bill that already passed through the House that is currently in the Senate that would actually save the Wayne County Clerk's Office a lot of money. Right now in Wayne County, the proofs that candidates get to make sure their name is correct on the ballot and all of that, that costs Wayne County a lot of money. The whole state has to spend 55 cents basically. It's first class mail. But in Wayne County, there's a population threshold. They have to send it certified mail. So they're spending $7.80 per piece, and 30% of those come back undeliverable. It's a massive waste of taxpayer money, whereas the rest of the state's sending it out 55 cents each for first class. My bill simply puts Wayne County on the same plateau as everybody else. It's going to be simply first class mail for Wayne County as well. So knocking that $7.80 per piece to 55 cents. In addition, it gives our clerks the option, if they would like to across the state, to communicate with candidates via email as well. So they send out the first class mail, but they also can communicate through email, making it a lot more efficient for our clerks.
Okay, great. Now, both of you co-sponsored that, or that's the one that you worked on?
That was when I worked on. I'm not sure if you co-sponsored that one or not. Yes, you did, because every Wayne County rep did co-sponsor it. So Rep. Corey was very supportive of that as well. It's just a way of making sure we represent Wayne County as a whole too.
Okay, great, thank you. Now, both of you are co-sponsoring some items also. What's on the table right now that you're both working on?
Well, there's a whole host of things that we're working on. I mean, the biggest kind of conversation we're having right now is the budget in Lansing. And so, there is a tremendous amount of money that's been available due to federal dollars coming back to Michigan. And so, we are kind of working with our colleagues to make sure that we can get that budget in order and making sure that we're funding our priorities. So the budget's been kind of the big conversation.
And just on that item, I mean, Congresswoman Debbie Dingell was at the Conference of Western Wayne last week and spoke about that in particular. The monies that are coming from Washington, D.C., she's concerned about them being clawed back to Washington if they haven't been spent. And it appears there's definitely a logjam in Lansing. So what would you attribute that to, and what can residents do to help clear that logjam and say that, we need that money, those fundings for infrastructure?
So this has been a subject of frustration up in Lansing, as we are leaving dollars on the table in Washington, D.C., and we need to be appropriating that money out to our local communities now. I know Rep. Corey and I have both been very, very vocal. At the end of the day, though, unfortunately, we are in the minority party. And if the majority party chooses not to spend those dollars, they control the agenda. They're the ones that have the majority of the votes. We just have to continue to push from our end to hype up the pressure here to say, look, our communities need this. I think of Eastern Canton. I think it's very personal to me when I think about the sidewalk gaps in Eastern Canton. I think along Haggerty Road, that's a 45-mile-an-hour road.
Mm-hmm.
And there are spaces where there are no sidewalks. So you could have young kids trying to get to school and they'd have to walk along the side of a 45-mile-an-hour road. That is not safe.
Right.
And when I talk to my colleagues across the aisle about this, they agree with me. They said, oh, that's not good. We should be fixing that. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a matter of us just pointing out, not just saying we need sidewalk gaps filled, here in Canton, but here's why. Here's the actual situation you have. And when you put that to light, you hopefully can start to turn the pressure up and get what we need here in Canton.
Okay. And we have some projects in with some of that money we've requested, some of them being sidewalk gaps. Definitely our sidewalk gap program targets things like around schools where kids have to walk to school within that mile and a half radius. And also in areas where, like you're saying, it's 55 miles an hour and there's nowhere to walk but in the road. So that is one of the programs that we're asking for also. And Canton Center Road, of course, that's coming up. We're starting April 18th. On that, and so trying to get some of the funding to help with some of the roads like Canton Center. And anything else that you're seeing that we could help the Canton residents with in terms of bills being proposed or budgeting?
Well, the other things are the conversations are the around the election coming up. I think that there's a great amount of debate in terms of there's some polarization on how people feel on how these elections should be run. I know Rep. Holzhauer and myself both believe in secure and fair elections. And Michigan's elections, for the large part, have meet every accreditation and are very secure and don't suffer those problems. But there is a lot of misinformation out there. There's a lot of petition drives. And so I urge the constituents of Canton to understand what they're signing if approached to sign a petition. The unfortunate reality is the people looking for signatures are not required to tell the truth. And so it is worthwhile and necessary for everyone to kind of do that extra amount of homework to just kind of understand what exactly they are signing.
Okay, that makes sense.
In addition, I do want to also, first of all, echo everything Representative Corey said. Please, Canton residents, know what you are signing because, as he said, they don't necessarily need to tell you the truth. If they're a signature gatherer, they may not be telling you exactly what's in that petition. So always make sure you look it over before you put your name to it. And also, because he's such a humble guy, I'm going to put it back on him. Rep. Corey's been working on a school safety task force, and I really want him to talk about it.
Thank you. Yes. The genesis is obviously unfortunate. With the abundance of school shootings that do exist, and that tragedy striking in Michigan in Oxford just a few months ago, the Speaker of the House did initiate a task force to kind of address these issues. And so there's about 8 legislators, 4 Democrats and 4 Republicans, coming together to try to understand what steps we can take to make our schools safe. And Rep. Holzhauer has been a crutch for me with his education background. It's someone that I've been able to bounce ideas off of. But we want to make sure that we are kind of addressing this issue in all aspects, and so every second matters, unfortunately, when there is an active shooter. And so the goal is to, hopefully prevent that from even happening. But in the sad reality, when those situations do come about, to understand the response during those incidents and right after. Because some of those things are unfortunately don't get the attention that they need to do. And so we want to make sure our schools are prepared. Again, I mentioned I have 2 small boys of my own. I know the sentiment at the bus stop is, parents feel sometimes when they're putting their kids and loading them onto the bus that this might be the last time they ever see their kid. And that's not the society that we want to live in. And that's not what makes Canton great. And so we want to make sure that our schools all across Michigan and are safe. For the people that work there, and obviously our most precious cargo in our kids that we send there every day.
Exactly. Thank you. And just thanks for bringing that up. So as you know, a week after Oxford, Plymouth Canton residents experienced that our own school was under lockdown for 5 hours. And my daughter was in the school at the time. And as much as we hate social media, at the same time, I was able to communicate with her as things were happening and, making sure she was okay, as other parents did also we were all standing outside the school. Some of the things that we're hearing out of that and some of the forums that have been held since then are School safety in terms of the kids' mental health. That's a big one that's being brought up. They're looking at bringing more mental health resources. We know that our in terms of our largest school district here, Plymouth Canton Schools, does employ social workers. Some of the groups are donating things like what they're calling lockdown buckets. So the Rotary clubs are getting in and giving them buckets that have food supplies, because you have these kids who are there for 5 hours. Some of them have nutritional needs if they have diabetes or something that they need to eat and certain things. Also, they were unable to go to the bathroom, so they're coming up with how they do that. Some of the other meetings that I've heard, they're talking about mental health, some of those buckets. Things like how do we secure the school a little bit more? So I've heard a lot of conversations around that. So I think definitely this is more to come along these lines.
Well, one thing I'd like to add is, part of the reason I think the perspective that we can bring to the table is just the uniqueness of our PSEP. Unfortunately, with the kind of the lockdown that took place after Oxford here locally, we didn't see kids being released well into the evening.
Right.
And just kind of the makeup of the educational park and the 3 high schools is really unique. There's not a lot of districts that have that.
Right.
And so some of the kind of strategies that are used in a normal district, quote unquote, might not be the most effective in a campus-like setup like we have here. And so it's important that we are kind of addressing each district, on a district-by-district basis to make sure that we are, equally and with equity, kind of approaching this issue to make sure that each district's getting what it uniquely needs.
Exactly, because Canton also has smaller schools too, and we have part of Van Buren and we have part of Wayne Westland. So we're a unique community that we have many districts here and then even many private schools. So it's important.
And I think it's important to point out too that Plymouth Canton Community Schools has also done a good job of upgrading their security as well. They've done a lot of great things, both in cooperation with the state as well as on their own, that I've been learning about for the last couple of years. And it goes into saying that we have a destination school district. Families move here to send their kids here, so we have an obligation to make sure that those kids come home every day safe and sound.
Agree. And you think that it's just a one-time event, but one of my children last night was up in the middle of the night having a nightmare about school shootings. And this is 2 months after the lockdown, so it's very much alive in our kids. So while we're thinking of solutions, the big thing is to continue to speak to our children and keep them well aware of that we're trying to protect them and keep things safe for them. What other committees are you serving on?
So I serve on the House Elections and Ethics Committee as well as the House Education Committee. Now, on the Elections and Ethics Committee, I am the ranking Democrat on that committee. I'm the Democratic vice chair. And I think one thing that's important to point out is when we hear the debate right now on election security, you hear it everywhere. I think it's important to point out that on the committee, I actually have a great relationship with the chair. We have a lot of things that we have worked together on a bipartisan basis on that has been good for all Michigan residents. That being said, the one thing that I have seen that's a frustration in that committee, as Representative Puri alluded to earlier, is the misinformation out there. We have seen over 250 audits of the 2020 election. We have seen an Auditor General's report of the 2020 election, and we even saw an investigation by the Republican Senate Oversight Chair into the security and accuracy of our elections. And they all came out with the exact same information that said there was no widespread fraud in the 2020 election. Our elections were secure, they were free and fair, the results are final. And the number one thing that I see as my responsibility when I'm on this committee is to make sure that we do not create barriers between every resident's free, fundamental, constitutional right to vote. So that is the mindset I go in with every single Tuesday at noon when we have committee. In addition to that, it's important to point out, people talk about voter ID. Michigan already has a voter ID law. Basically, when you go to vote, you show your ID, they give you your ballot. If you don't have your ID, you have to fill out an affidavit attesting to your identity under the penalty of perjury if you're lying. So we have a very secure method here with lots of checks and balances. Our clerks do a fantastic job, including our Canton Township clerk, Michael Segrist, does a fantastic job of making sure our elections are run smoothly. So a lot of my work there has to do with making sure that we protect this very constitutional fundamental right. In the Education Committee, it's all about Plymouth Canton and Northville Public Schools for me. Our school districts are destinations for people, like I said earlier, they are destinations for families to move to this community to send their kids there. So I do everything in my power to be a resource to our school districts, as well as to make sure we can get maximum amounts of funding and programs for them to make our great school districts even better.
That's great. Thank you for that. No, I agree. And that's a bipartisan decision that our elections were fair and equal in Michigan.
Yes, they were.
No, thank you.
And yes, it is.
Another item that's been in the news is the GLWA in terms of the Highland Park issue. We've seen that on the news the last couple of weeks a lot. We know that 87 communities have paid their share of what's happening in Highland Park. And first of all, with Canton's values, we know that we do not, first of all, want Highland Park's water cut off. We do not want another Flint crisis issue at all. So it's important that the people of Highland Park have continually clean water and for their families. However, this is a decision that happened 10 years ago, with the emergency manager that came in. And so what are your thoughts on how we resolve it, especially as we know that the state has the funding that we were speaking of earlier for water infrastructure and, to help in a situation like this?
Okay, so I think first and foremost, to echo the sentiment that you made, I agree 100% that Highland Park residents need to continue to have their water. And from what I have been told, that no one's shutting off their water.
Okay.
So, which is good. We don't want them to be without water.
Right.
But I don't think that Western Wayne residents should be paying for that bill. And I think it's important that this is a state problem. It needs to be solved at the state level. It was created 10 years ago. At the time, they were told, oh, this is only going to be a few days just for us to fix Highland Park's water system. And then they found out that the repairs were a lot more expensive and a lot more extensive. And now we're in a situation where they never went off the emergency system. And that's why we have the high bills that we have now, that are the high debt, I should say, in Highland Park. I think it's important that we find a solution to get Highland Park's water system up and updated where it needs to be. We need to make sure that debt is paid off, but it should not be on the backs of Western Wayne County residents.
Right, great, thank you.
Yeah, no, I think Rep. Colzar kind of echoed my sentiment there. Unfortunately, these decisions that kind of made this crisis come about were made well before either Rep. Colzar or myself assumed office. And so, the unfortunate reality is that the state was involved, many years ago. And I think the solution probably does fall along state lines. But the most important thing here is no one's advocating for anyone's water to be turned off.
Right.
That's not the solution here. But we do need to kind of figure out just kind of how we're going to pay for this mess.
Great, thank you. Are there any closing remarks that either of you would like to say? And we know that, just to let you know, we will make sure that your information is on the screen so people can contact you in your office if they have any questions.
That would be great. I just want to say in closing, as I said in the beginning of this, I'm still the state representative for Eastern Canton through the end of 2022. And I would encourage residents, any issues they have, please still reach out to our office. That's what we're here for. And representing Canton has just been the honor of a lifetime. And I'm looking forward to still representing through the end of the year. But once this year is closed, I can't say enough good things about what an honor it has been to represent this community.
Great, thank you. Rep. Puri?
Yeah, I tell people all the time that I represent the greatest district in Michigan. And a large portion that is because of Canton Township, and just the wonderful community that this continues to become. There's people from all backgrounds that have come to call Canton home. It's really a special place. It's been extra special representing it with Rep. Colzar, and so we get another 7 months or so together. But with that being said, our offices work extremely well together. I just urge our constituents here, if there's any matters that we can help with, to please to reach out, look at the information I think will be provided in this video, and we would love to help.
I think actually I would like to clarify that. I wouldn't say second greatest district. I would say that we have been able to work together so well that we have made the 20th or 21st districts just one giant district of collaboration, and that's been wonderful to be a part of.
So Rep. Puri and Rep. Colzar, thank you for coming today. Thank you for representing Canton well, and we'll have your information on the screen for people to call and ask you any questions.
Wonderful.
Great.
Canton residents, thank you for joining us today at Good Day Canton. Please call your representatives if you have any questions. Enjoy your day, and we'll see you soon.
This program was produced by Canton Community Productions.